Okay, so first off, I just want to say good morning. Second, feeling a little bit under the weather today, so forgive me if I'm stumbling and bumbling more than usual. But Rabbi Nachman says in the first Torah of Likutey Halachot that the key to linking up Hashem's chokhmah and your keli, Hashem's light and your vessel, is to learn Torah b'koach. That is to learn Torah even when it's difficult to. And you see people like athletes that they play through everything, and they're doing it for literally nothing. So kol sheken that we have to push ourselves to learn these teachings and to teach them and to try to get it to as many people as possible to make a real significant change in a person's life, in the lives of the Jewish people. And B'ezras Hashem, bring the Mashiach closer. So Rav Natan now says, V'al ken, therefore, noagim zot b'chol shana. We're noheg, we're customary to do this b'chol shana all year, b'yom shemet o bo aviv o imo, on the day that one's father or mother passed away. The reason the neshama requires a tikkun every year, because we just said last week that the main reason that we used to fast on this day and now we learn Torah and we give tzedakah in his merit is because a person, once he has passed away, he's no longer able to have a higher level of wholeness beyond the one which he acquired while he or she was here. And it's up to the children and the children's children to continue to elevate the neshama, that soul, when it has passed on from this physical world to higher places. And the reason the soul requires a yearly tikkun is that tikufot hashana, that is the annual cycle, these year-long revolutions made by the celestial bodies at Hashem's ratzon, it parallels to kufot hayamim, that is the day-long circuit of the way that the bodies circle around in the sky. That is, just as each 24-hour period has a daytime and a nighttime, an evening and a morning, and so the composite of the year has a summer and a winter, these seasons parallel day and night. That is, for in the winter, the nights are long and so relative to the summer. Therefore, the winter is bechinat laila, night. Correspondingly, the summer, whose days are long, is identified with day relative to winter. This is also the meaning of the pasuk that it says, L'cha yom, the day is yours, af l'cha laila, also the night is yours. Ata hitzavta givulot ha'aretz. You're the one who fixed all the boundaries of the universe. Kayitz v'choref ata yitzartem. You're the one who created the summer and the winter. So on paper, there's no connection between summer and winter and the fact that Hashem created the day and the night, that they're both Hashem's. However, we're learning that in fact, every aspect of the seasons, every aspect of time and space is really a manifestation of spiritual phenomena. That is, that there's something called galut and there's something called geula. There's something called exile. There's something called redemption. These are the two main principles that are constantly at play in the world, that are, so to speak, interacting with each other in order to give Jewish people bechira, in order to give us free will to choose geula and not to choose exile, to choose revelation and not to choose constriction and concealment. And this is the reason why during the winter, the night are longer, because nighttime is always bechinat exile. Because nighttime you can't see, you don't know where you're going. All of your inner lackings are enhanced. This is all the concept of the nighttime, or now the winter. As opposed to this, we have the summer, which is the Bechina of daytime, because the days are long. Day, Yom, is always the concept of Geula, the revelation of light, that you can see, that you do understand what's happening. B'chol Sibuv Hashana, and each annual cycle, Hu Bechina Sibuv Hayom. It mirrors the cycle of day and night. V'haila Erev Vokir, the evening and morning. Shu Bechinat Cheshchat Galut. And this concept of the darkening of the exiles, it's similar to nighttime. The Ora Geula, and the light of the redemption, the light of revelation, the light of shalom, of peace, the light of truth. Shehu Bechina Boker is the concept of Boker, morning, day. Bechinat Klaliut Ha'olam. This cycle also represents the totality of existence of the world, of this world. Shanikra Laila, that this world is called in its entirety from beginning until the end, Laila, nighttime. Keneged Chidush Ha'olam, which is Keneged, or opposite, the renewal of existence, the renewal of reality. Shubachinat Olam Haba, which is the concept of Olam Haba. Shubachinat Or Yom, that's the concept of the light of the day. Boker Abraham, the morning of Abraham. Kemuva Lamaskil. Like is understood by those who understand. What is this referring to? Usually when the tzaddikim refer to Kemuva Lamaskil, those people who understand, it's referring specifically to those who know Kabbalistic literature, that they understand Kabbalistic principles, that they understand the deeper wisdom, the esoteric Jewish mysticism. Shekol hem bichinat achat, that it's really essentially all one and the same, and it's just manifesting itself in different ways. And therefore, once a period of a year cycles over the soul of the deceased, the sons must apply themselves to the soul's tikkun at the year's completion again. And this yearly cycle of the parallels, the cycle of night and day, through which the dimension of the tikkun of Amunah and the renewal of reality is implemented. This is the idea that the light of the day shines in the morning, always appears after the darkness of night. By dint of our having bolstered ourselves with Amunah through the darkest darkness of the night. That is to say, it's not just that night moves into day according to the Jewish calendar, or that winter moves into summer, or that exile moves into redemption, but it is the nighttime itself. It is the winter itself. It is the bitterness and the frigidity, the coldness, the darkness that actually gives birth to Yom, daytime, summer, Geula, redemption. It is our Amunah in the darkness that actually gives birth to the reality that's called Chidush HaOlam. It's our belief in the renewal of reality that gives birth to the renewal of reality. In the Sfirot, you see that the highest Sfira is called Keter. And this is Keneged Amunah Shlema, that a person has perfected Amunah. Now, when a person has perfected Amunah, you see the next Sfira that's given birth to is called Chokhmah. Chokhmah represents a birth. Chokhmah is a revelation of that which was, so to speak, in the womb. But that only comes down into the world via the Keter, that is the Amunah at nighttime. So specifically us right now, as we discussed last night, that despite the fact that we represent the Malchut of history, we represent the lowest Madrega level, spiritual level of history. At the same time, that lowest level requires and draws down the highest light, that is the light of the Keter. Now, the way that we do that is through Amunah, complete Amunah in Hashem, despite the fact that our life circumstances are not conducive to that. Just as like a practical example, like right now, I don't feel well. My stomach is killing me. I feel like I have to throw up. But at the same time, I have Amunah that this is the best possible thing that this could happen to me. That Hashem is doing this for me, not to me. That this is going to bring me to a higher revelation of godliness. It's going to give birth to a greater revelation than I had previous to it. Like the Gemara says, and Rabbi Nachman brings in Likutey Halachot, that sometimes you have to put down the Torah in order to Makayim it, meaning on a deeper level, sometimes I need to have the light hidden from me in order there should be a greater revelation of it. And it's our belief that that's what's happening that actually causes that light to be released. It's the belief in Mashiach that gives birth to the Mashiach. This is the deeper reason why the Lubavitcher Rebbe was, for lack of a better term, obsessed with getting people to learn and speak about Mashiach. That every single drasha that you have a Chabadnik, he goes across from Brooklyn to Queens, and he goes miles and miles and miles just to say over Mashiach now. What is this preoccupation with Mashiach? The answer is that to the degree that you believe in him, to that degree you can give birth to him. To the degree that you believe in Geula or renewal, Chiddush HaOlam, to that degree you can manifest that thing. This is the reason why Rabbi Nachman says in the Likutey Halachot that a person who has enough Amunah, he doesn't have to leave his home in order to make his Parnasa. This is very hard to believe. And now Rabbi Nachman is saying the reason it doesn't happen to us is because it's hard for us to believe. But for a person that he is, and this is an acquisition, it's not something that I can just wake up and say, I believe. But it takes tremendous toiling and spirituality. It takes tremendous work on a person's own inner spiritual and physical, psychological, emotional faculties to get to the point that you can actually acquire what's called Emunah Shlema. But once you believe so intensely that your belief is even stronger than what you see, because it's actually rooted in a higher place than what you see, not unsimilar, let's say, to if I said right now, are you alive? So you would say, yes. You say, what's your proof? Say, feel my pulse. So say, how do you know you're not dreaming? Like Rabbi Akiva Tatz's famous shiur. So you say, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I know I'm not dreaming. I've had dreams. It's not a dream. I'm awake. I'm alive. And didn't you feel alive and awake while you were dreaming? Yes. So how do you know you're not dreaming? I just know. This type of knowledge is deeper than proof, because in truth, there is no way to prove that you're alive. There's no way. So with that being said, at the same time, we know we are. So where is that coming from? There is a deep belief which goes much deeper than what we see, because there's a reality which is existing, which is pumping life force into this world, which is rooted higher than what we experience in this world. And therefore, it is our strengthening ourselves in our Emunah in the nighttime, during the darkest darkness of the night, Rav Natan says, which is us right now, and us bolstering ourselves in Emunah, which is synonymous with the exile in this world. Because this deceased person had been in this world of darkness, and now he must ascend to his station in order to attain all these affirmation concepts, meaning the clarification of his power of imagination, like we've spoken about in the past, the lens through which we see our lives, achieving Amunah in Chidush HaOlam, achieving perfect faith in the renewal of reality, hearing the new song of the future, which will be sung in the times of Mashiach, that song which is Shir Chadash, not Shir Chadasha, that the concept of the female spiritually, like the nighttime, is something that even though it gives birth, once it gives birth, it's going to give birth to another female, which has to give birth again. Meaning to say that even though there's a redemption that's coming from my struggle, the female redemption is one in which I must go back down into exile. This is the type of Geula we've had from Edom, from Rome, from Yavan, from Greece, from Paras, from Persia, from Babel, from Babylonia. That these are all female redemptions because we had to give birth again. We had to go down to exile again. So the female redemption is not complete. So too in our lives, every single time that we, so to speak, have a geula of sorts in our personal lives, we finally get that job, we finally have peace with our spouse, our children are now listening to us, or they're finally healthy, and the list goes on and on and on. A person achieves personal health in a way that they never had before. A person finally really connects to Hashem in a very deep way. This is a geula, but it's a female geula. Because after this, you're going to have to go back down into exile. You're going to have to go back and down into a concealment. But in the end, in the times of Mashiach, there's going to be a Shir Chadash. What does it mean that it's male? It's not a chauvinistic thing. It's not that men are greater than women. It's that the spiritual concept of a man is it ends there. As opposed to a female which needs to give birth, the man only needs to give seed. There is no, so to speak, 9 months of birth pangs that come along with, that are juxtaposed to the birth process when it comes to a man. That's only with the female. It just gives birth. It's the end, so to speak. So too, the Midrash in Shemot Rabbah says that at the end, when the Mashiach comes and there's a renewal of the world, this will be a new song, Az Yashir. Not, why did Moshe say, then we will sing? You should say, now I'm singing at the Yam Suf, at the sea. So the Midrash says, why in the future and why is it male? The answer is because it's speaking about the days of Mashiach. That then Moshe is saying, we're going to sing the male revelation of Geula, not the female revelation we've had in the past. And this one has no exile after it. This has no suffering after it. And all of these things are comparable to or, they're comparable to light. Thus, the sons engage once again in the soul's tikkun by reciting Kaddish and so on. Gam b'chol. Also, each and every year has a Rosh Hashanah. And we know by Rabbi Nachman that Rosh Hashanah was his whole entire mission. He said himself, my essence is Rosh Hashanah. And he said that he had been given the secrets of Rosh Hashanah in a way in which none of the tzaddikim in history have ever been revealed to about this specific chag. Now, what's one of the essential aspects of this? Who cares? The answer, says Rabbi Nachman in Likutey Halachot, that the main time, the ikar kol tikunim, the essence for all the rectifications that take place during a person's year, during a person's day, during the history of the world, they all take place on Rosh Hashanah. Which can be seen very clearly in the Torah and Rabbi Nachman's lessons. Since these rectifications extend from Rosh Hashanah across the entire year, because Rosh Hashanah is the head, and the year, so to speak, is only the revelation of what's going on in the head. So to speak, if you can imagine that you have the Megillah. The Megillah is like the head, like we just had in Perm. And it's the unrolling, it's the unraveling of the Megillah that's like Hashanah, that's the year. Now, in truth, even though you keep hitting new pieces of information, you keep having new experiences that are completely different than the ones before. In fact, every new piece of information, every new day, every new experience is really only a revelation of that which was already in the Megillah. It was already established. That's the concept of Rosh Hashanah. That Chazal teach us that throughout the entire year, all you're experiencing is an exposition, a revelation, an unfolding of what was already cemented on the first day of the year, which is Keneged, the origin of creation, Bereshit. And therefore, the main tikkunim come on that beginning. Why? Because the origin always has the greatest effect because it is influencing every other part of reality. Like we learned last night, that the keter of existence, the crown of existence, or the crown saying of Maseh Bereshit, that is Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning, Hashem created all of spiritual and physical reality. And then we proceed to say 9 more sayings of creation. But those 9 more sayings of creation are nothing more than, they are merely a revelation of what took place in the Keter originally. We're only getting to taste it, so to speak, in its different facets, in its different aspects, but it's all already contained within the Keter. Therefore, the main time to make a change is in the Keter. Because what's going to happen in those 9 lower sayings is only revealing what happened there. This is the reason why Rabbi Nachman says, anybody who believes in me, truly believes in me, must be by me for Rosh Hashanah. Because he says that I can do tikkunim for you on that day of the year that I can't do the rest of the year. Because the main time of tikkun, says Rabbi Nachman, is the head. It's the apex. It's the crown. It's Rosh Hashanah. And these end up playing out throughout the entire year. Therefore, at each beginning of the year, for the soul of the deceased, on the day of his yahrzeit, which is its Rosh Hashanah, because that's the beginning of its entering into the space of Olam Haba, just like when we first came down here, that's our Rosh Hashanah, the sons must devote themselves again to the soul's tikkun. By doing so, to renew the above tikkunim for yet another year. Kikol abanim chal hatikun, because now the responsibility for implementing tikkun of the parents' neshama, it falls specifically upon the sons. Ki ikar hu da'at kedusha tzarichin l'takno ayedei bechinat zal. Ki ikar, because the essence of the da'at of kedusha, that is the knowing that Hashem is the cause of everything. This greater wisdom, this greater consciousness, which will only be revealed completely in the times of Mashiach, that this reaches its tikkun only through the children, only through the sons. Because da'at, says Rabbi Nachman, and Rav Natan's bringing it down right now, da'at is the source of compassion, of rachmanut. That to the degree in which a person has this faculty called knowing Hashem, to that degree he can be empathetic towards the suffering of his brethren. Because he understands in truth that everything is only what Hashem wants it to be. And he realizes at the same time that him and that person are not disconnected. They're really one unity. They're one whole. And there's no difference anymore now between your suffering and my suffering. So therefore, the more that I can understand your suffering, the more then I could be empathetic to it. And this is very simple, also like in therapy. If you have a person, let's say, for instance, that he is constantly making problems for everybody. He has interpersonal issues at home. He's causing issues every day with his friends, with his family, and everybody's like, Mapito, what's wrong with this person? He always has a problem. He's always creating issues. And he now draws a lot of ire from people, a lot of hatred from people. But the real reason they hate him, the real reason they can't take him is not because he's causing these problems. It's because they don't understand him. Now he comes to a therapist, and that therapist never met his friends. They never met his family. They were never tormented by this person. And now all of a sudden they say, what happened to you as a child? And he says, well, my father beat me, my mother left me, I was neglected, I didn't have clean clothes to wear as a child, I was bullied at school because I smelled every day. Nobody wanted to talk to me. Oh, that's why you're hard to deal with, because you had a horrific upbringing. And now all of a sudden that therapist can have rachamim for him and can begin to help him because he knows more. So too the main faculty of the Mashiach, says Rav Yitzchak Ginsburg, will be his level of rachamim. Rabbi Nachman hints to this as well, that the Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation, his whole entire ikar is the fact that he is the greatest rachamim in the generation. He has the greatest empathy for the suffering of Klal Yisrael, for the suffering of the individual. Like Rabbi Nachman himself said, that I once prayed to Hashem that he should allow me to feel the suffering of my students like they feel it, so I can empathize with them even more. And he said that Hashem answered him so much that he actually felt the suffering of his students worse than they did. So too, with the coming of the Mashiach, he was going to have the greatest level of empathy that ever was, because empathy, rachamim, comes from Keter. That this is where the 13 principles of rachamim come from. It comes from the Keter. But in truth, that level of rachamim, empathy, actually comes from, and this is very deep, and we're going to get there soon as it's come together, the 13 principles of learning, the exegetical principles of understanding, which come from Rabbi Yishmael, that we say every morning as Sephardim, that we use in the Gemara, meaning, let's say, for instance, you have a kal v'chomer. This is just one example. That is that I have a situation in which we deal lightly. Now, when it comes to a situation which is more stringent in that type of context, all the more so, we're going to say for sure it's the same case. Now, that itself is what gives birth to rachamim. That gives birth to empathy. What's the connection between the two? Because it is the deep understanding of reality. It's the deep understanding of the psyche of an individual, which gives birth to your empathy for them. This is often, by the way, why you see that most people in the clinical world, whether it's psychologists, or therapists, or social workers, they often themselves have experienced the greatest forms of trauma, of darkness, of suffering, because that in itself gave them da'at. It gave them knowing of suffering. And now that they know suffering, they're empathetic towards it. And now that they're empathetic towards it, they can finally help this person who has been incapable of being helped. And da'at is identified with compassion that extends from the father to the son. As explained in the Rebbe's lesson in the statement of Chazal, this is the extent of a father's compassion for the son. So regarding Avimelech's request of Abraham, swear to me by Hashem that you will not deal falsely with me or my grandchildren. And the Midrash there teaches that this indicates that the extent of the compassion of a father that a man feels, it does not reach beyond 3 generations, which is very interesting. That is to say that a person, he has tremendous love and compassion for his own children and for his grandchildren. But the Torah is saying that, so to speak, there's a cap to the level of intensity of that compassion, and it begins to wane after the grandchildren. And this is the meaning of fathers, Yodea, your truth to their sons. Fathers, they will inform your truth to their sons. The word Yodea will make known, and Da'at come from the same roots. Meaning that the essence of the role of the father to a son is for the father to give over his Da'at, his knowledge of Hashem, his experience that Hashem is the sole cause of everything that takes place in his life, that everything is from him, it's for the best, it's because he loves you. That is the sole inheritance of a father to his son. Because da'at and compassion are a single concept. Rabbi Nachman actually brings this down as well, that on Shavuot, in Likutey Halachot, he explains that there is something you can do on Shavuot you can't do the rest of the year. And that is have this highest experience of the mikveh. That even though it's a mitzvah to go to the mikveh every day, and the students of Rabbi Nachman are known for doing so, as are most of the Talmidei Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Nachman says the most powerful mikveh experience of the entire year is on Shavuot, because you're tapping, so to speak, into the source mikveh experience, the root mikveh experience, the rosh, the head mikveh experience that will give birth to all the mikveh experiences for the rest of the year. That is on the night of Shavuot. And he says that when you immerse in that mikveh, it's like you're going into the 50th gate. The 50th gate of understanding, the 50th gate of knowledge, the 50th gate of da'at. And you're immersing yourself in those pure waters. And that itself is drawing down the highest level of compassion. That like on Shavuot, we didn't experience Hashem like we did when we were taken out of Egypt, that he appeared to be a mighty warrior, that he was fierce in his defense of the Jewish people, and that he was chopping up, so to speak, all of the enemies of Klal Yisrael after they had so oppressed and mitigated us for so many years in such an intense way. But that on the days of Shavuot, that we didn't see him like that young warrior, but he appeared to us to be like an older grandfather, like one who was pure rachamim, he's pure empathy, he's pure love. He wasn't intimidating, he wasn't scary. He was the most intense revelation of love. Now, the real truth is they're the same. Hashem doesn't change. It's just that when you change, you have different experiences of Hashem. That on the lower level of Pesach, so Hashem looks like a mighty warrior and he's ripping you out of your suffering because he can't take your suffering. So he, like a young Bachor, is going down into the depths to rip you out. But as you grow wiser and you grow more mature and you become more connected and you have worked on yourself, then Hashem stops appearing as much like that fierce warrior and he appears more like a settled grandfather or grandmother, someone above who has now experienced all of life. He's not intimidated or overwhelmed by the difficulties and challenges and the darkness of this world because they've been there, done that, and they know that everything is for the best. That's how we experience Hashem on Shavuot. And therefore, da'at and compassion are one concept. To the degree to which that you know that everything is from Hashem, to that degree you will feel that Hashem is compassionate towards you. To the degree in which you don't know that everything is from Hashem, that everything is for your best, that everything is because He loves you, to that degree you will not feel that Hashem cares about you. And therefore, it's specifically the son that he's busy with the rectification of his father's da'at. Because he needs to rectify the da'at that extended from the father to the son to begin with, because the only reason he knows to do this is because his father taught him. Therefore, he's an extension of the da'at of his father. Because it's from his father's mind. It's taught in the Tikkun Zohar, it's taught in Kabbalah, it's taught in many different of the writings of the Mekubalim, that the origin of a child comes from the mind of the father. That the son extends entirely from the father's mind, and so he merits his father's perceptions precisely. And everything is rectified by this revelation of da'at through the din tefillah, through the judgment prayer, through the emunah in Hashem's goodness, even when I don't see Him. And therefore, I am going to fight, and I'm going to advocate, and I'm going to keep pushing the envelope in my prayer that Hashem should help me and those around me, despite the fact that it appears that He's hiding from me, because I know deep down that it's really Him and He's the cause and He's giving life force to this thing which is taking place in my life, even though that is paradoxically that He's hiding from me. But it's Him Himself that's giving birth to that reality. And He's really there, by which we merit this song of the Chiddush HaOlam, that we merit the renewal of our lives, that we merit the renewal of reality. This is the soul's most important tikkun, because this is the purpose for which man came to this world, to know Hashem. So what he's saying is like this, and this is very important for us because there is a lot of questions about this, that the Rambam himself says in his works on halakha, that in one place he says the whole purpose for us coming to this world is to know Hashem. It's explicit, that this is the reason for us coming down to this world, that we should know Hashem. Now, elsewhere, he says mefurash explicitly that the purpose of our coming to this world is to believe in Hashem. So now the question is, which one is it? Am I here to know Hashem, or am I here to believe in Hashem? Am I here to experience in a felt, palpable way that everything is from Hashem, that I literally experience that in my mind, in my heart, in my soul, in my body, in my fingers, in my feet, to the extent that I see it in front of me? Or is it that I believe in that, even though I don't see it, that I believe in that goodness, that I believe in that light, that I believe in that love and that truth, even though it's nowhere to be seen? And the answer, says Rav Natan, the answer, says Rabbi Nachman, is these are not contradictions, but they are a process. That it is our belief, it is our faith, it is our emunah at nighttime, which gives birth to Boker Yom, that gives birth to Or Hayom, the light of the day. It gives birth to the light of the Geula. It gives birth to knowing Hashem. And this is hinted to when we wrap our tefillin and we say, V'ras tichli be'emunah v'yada'at Hashem. that I am entrothing myself to you. The emuna, with faith, the yadat, and through this I will know you. And this is the reason why Rabbi Nachman says that the main tikkun in this world, the whole purpose of your existing here, which is not a steer to the Rambam saying that it's to know Hashem. It's not a steer to the Zohar saying that it's to know Hashem. Because it is the emunah, the belief in Hashem when you don't see Him, that causes your ability to know and see Him. Just as a practical example as well, we see this in every facet of our lives. That it is the ability of the pregnant woman to believe that after 9 months they're going to give birth and the pain will be over and all of this will have been for the very best. And this was the only way in which they could have had this child. It's only the faith in that experience that allows them to get to the end and to have the greatest moment of their life when their child is born. It is only a person who gets married and afterwards starts to experience shalom bayit issues, domestic peace issues. It is only their faith that this will get better, that they will experience a higher level of harmony than even previous to the fighting, that will allow them to actually get to the point that they can know and experience this reality. So true in any spiritual or physical venture. When I desire to try and achieve a new thing, that Chazal say, if it comes easily, it's not real. If it happens right away, it's not real. Why? Because the curse of Adam Arishon is that there's always pregnancy now. There's always birth pangs now. Every real thing must be given birth to. It does not just come out anymore. And therefore, if something happens instantaneously, that's a good sign. It's not real. You can let it go and move on. But if you're trying to do something very good and it's difficult, this is not an indication that you should stop. In many cases, it's the opposite. That because I know I'm doing the right thing, I'm trying so hard to really connect to truth, to really help people in the most genuine, authentic way possible. And I don't see results right now, not within myself, not around me, but I believe, I really mamish believe that this is the emet la'amito, this is the truth of truths. It's that experience itself of believing and enduring the parts that you don't see the results that gives birth ultimately to the results. They are not one thing and then I have to get through it, then ultimately I get to the next thing. The chiddush here is it's my believing in it when I don't see it that actually gives birth to my seeing it. And so it is with the aim of knowing Hashem, that man's primary obligation and mitzvah is to ensure that he leaves behind sons. This is entirely for the sake of the tikkun of da'at, namely the tikkun of emunah, which becomes ever more refined with each succeeding generation. Now, obviously, if a person's listening to this might corroborate preconceived notions that a person already has or a group of people already have, that the Torah is chauvinistic, that it places more emphasis or appreciation on the male gender than the female, to say that the main tikkun comes with sons. But this is not so. And in fact, this is very deep, and if you think about it, it's hinting towards the opposite, in fact. That is, that if the main tikkun is with the sons, and tikkun means fixing. Fixing implies lacking. That is, that the Torah appears to be saying, and especially in the language of Hasidus, in the languages of Kabbalah, the wisdom of Kabbalah, that is that women, Jewish women, to some extent, are already perfected in certain ways. This is the real secret for why they have a less mitzvot than men. It's not because there's any deficiency in them. It's because actually there's less deficiency in them. The mitzvot, says Kabbalah, says the Zohar, comes in the place of deficiency. Why is it that a man has a mitzvah to get married and a woman doesn't have a mitzvah to get married, at least d'oraita? Because a man might not naturally desire to get married, but he needs to, because he will never feel whole unless he is, because he's lacking. That's why the Torah says it's not good for man to be alone, but it doesn't say anything about women. That you see, chas v'shalom, at the end of people's lives, that when, so to speak, a woman's husband passes away, that wife could then continue to live for another 5, 10, 15, 20 years, even after the husband passes on. But you often see that for the husband, when the wife passes, chas v'shalom, prior to the husband, he just can't take it anymore and he leaves because of how much he needs her. So too, why is it that we have to wear tefillin? Why is it that we have to go to pray 3 times a day? Why is it that women are not bound by time-bound mitzvahs? Because the depths of it is that women have a higher level of connection to time and space. And because of that, they don't need a reminder of time and space. Whereas men, we are more naturally, so to speak, in the world of potential. We're not as naturally attuned to time and space, and therefore it is the obligation of the mitzvahs which anchors us within time and space. It rectifies us. So too here we're saying the main tikkun for the father comes from the son, because tikkun comes in a place of lacking. And this is entirely for the sake of his tikkun of da'at, namely a tikkun of emunah, which becomes ever more refined with each succeeding generation. This is the idea of his emunah is from generation to generation. That Rav Natan is saying that this is a big secret, or your emunah is from generation to generation. You establish the earth, meaning to say that emunah, so to speak, has been continued to be worked on like a bridge. Like when you go outside and you see them doing work unendingly on something, and you're wondering why it's never being finished, and you're assuming it's probably because they're wasting your tax money. However, there is a reality in which emunah, so to speak, this daughter of Hashem, is being built throughout all of the generations. That the head is being built in the beginning, and then the eyes, and then the ears, and the nose of emunah, the mouth of emunah, until you get to the end where the feet of emunah are being built. And once the entire body of emunah is completely built, then the Geula comes into play, the Mashiach comes into the world, and the Chidush HaOlam, the renewal of the world, comes into existence. That's what it means that your emunah is from generation to generation, meaning to say, the tikkun of emunah continues in every generation, and there's a new addition, there's a new adornment that takes place in each generation. It becomes increasingly refined from one generation to the next, as in your emunah is from generation to generation. And then he ends and says, Baruch Hashem, L'olam Amen V'Amen. Now, just as a side note, and this will take questions if you guys have any, it's interesting to note that before Rabbi Nachman passed away, he told his students that you're not my real Hasidim. And they were horrified by this. They didn't understand why was he saying that they're not his real students? They had sacrificed and given up everything to be by him because they believed in him so much. He said, you'll only be able to know if you're my real Hasidim in the last generation. But what does the last generation have to do with them? And the answer is that we keep coming back. And he keeps coming back. That Moshe keeps coming back. And Bnei Yisrael keep coming back. And we, so to speak, we have to renew our emunah in the tzaddik, in Hashem, in his Torah, in ourselves, in every generation, at a different madrega, at a different level. And maybe in the past, it was at the level of Yesod. And now we're at the level of Malchut, we're at the level of the mouth, we're at the level of the feet, we're at the level of the end of existence. And therefore, the emunah then will have to be the most intense, because then you will not see the light of the tzaddik. You won't see the light of Hashem. You won't see the light of the Torah. You won't see your own personal light at all, because the feet is the place of the Sitra Achra. The feet is the place of complete darkness and concealment. The feet place of complete chaos. So, Bezrat Hashem, that we should all be able to hold on to our emunah and to believe with all of our heart in the true goodness and the uniqueness, the power of our own neshamot, of our own godly souls, of that of our Rebbe, of that of the tzaddik, of that of the Torah, of that of Hashem, even when we don't see it, because it's that experience of believing in it when you don't have it that actually gives birth to having it. Bezrat Hashem, we should all see it both individually and collectively. Anybody have any questions from today's class? You can also chat it in on the bottom if you don't feel comfortable saying it out loud, but you should try to ask a question. It's important to ask. Only a person who asks knows.
Yeah, Rabbi Thomas, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So we're saying that tikkun for the parents, right? Let's say, for example, the children, right? You have the boys, you have the girls, right? So the tikkun for the boys would be to do exactly what you said. What about for the girls? Let's say a sibling doesn't keep Shabbos or kosher or whatever, is promiscuous, and all that other stuff. Does that actually harm the parents up there?
We'll just say it doesn't add to their standing.
What does that mean? If it doesn't add, it subtracts, no?
No.
But they don't feel a damage up there? Meaning, like, let's say theoretically, I didn't say Kaddish on the year, right?
Yeah.
Does it not benefit? It doesn't benefit her, that's one thing, but does it damage the person?
Listen, there's different ways of understanding it. Obviously, if you're in a place that you can't change anymore, and you see that you could elevate if your children or your grandchildren are doing certain things for you, then obviously, even if you're not going higher, to some degree, it is a lacking because you're not taking advantage of a potential opportunity for yourself. And you yourself might, and that person might not have been Osek in Torah mitzvot while he was alive. So therefore, he may be in a very low standing. And he really is hoping that his children become Bal Tshuva, his grandchildren become Bal Tshuva. And for this, you need a lot of tefillah, and there's a very good chance. It could be the father, the mother themselves that is praying for you up there, that's causing you to now have an awakening down here.
So basically, the more you do for them down here, the more capability you give them to do from up there down here.
Yes, because this is the place of change, and there is the place of the revelation of that change. Now, even though this sounds paradoxical, then you'd say, so how do they change places? If even down here you make a change, you're connected to them, that sounds nice. Why should they elevate? You can't change up there. But the answer is that is the place of revelation of what's going on here. So therefore, it's not changing in relation to itself, meaning you can't change something there. But things are changing there in the sense that they're changing here. So because they're changing here, that's reflecting itself and revealing itself over there. Like for instance, that we know that in the times of the Zohar, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that he ended up establishing a yeshiva after he passed away in Gan Eden. And now he's the one who's teaching everybody there. What about before Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Who was teaching there? Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching everybody there. Okay, but how could that change if you're in a place that doesn't change? The answer is that that's a reflection of the place that changes. It can't change because it's only a reflection, but it can change in the sense that it's going to reflect something different that's going on over here. So too, the main tikkun for the father comes from the son. That is, by way of the son uplifting himself, automatically his father is uplifted because he is actually one with his father. Despite his relationship with his father, despite his connection to his father, he is, in a sense, in a very deep sense, originating in the mind of his father. And therefore, even though, like Rabbi Nachman says, ultimately he's given birth to and, so to speak, exits that space and enters into you, at the same time, that's only in the world of time and space. And the world which exists beyond time and space, you never left that mind. Just like, so to speak, the Jewish people have never left the original thought of Hashem from the beginning of creation. And in that place, we're still one with him. And that's why there is this inextricable connection between us and Hashem, no matter what we do here. That it should be on paper that there is a disconnect because the majority of people have no idea who Hashem is. And even those people that do, many of them also don't really. So then why have we not have a disconnect? Why didn't Hashem choose to do something else? It's obviously not working. The answer is we're one with him, mamish. We came from his original thought. Now, even though it could be that in the world of time and space, we now devolve into our own entities, but to some extent, at a higher level of reality, we never left that place and one with Hashem in his mind. And that can never be changed. And that place of our godly soul. And that's why the Tanya says that a Jewish man or woman's godly soul, no matter what we do down here, could never be affected because it's still existing in the mind of Hashem, so to speak. Kivichol. My question is in connection to my current situation. I've been keeping Shabbat for almost a year now alone, but last night my husband told me he doesn't want me to continue in the summer. Is this a tikkun? So much because I don't know what to do. Is this part of a challenge Hashem needs me to overcome for some reason? I am already so much against the grain. Listen, it's very hard. On a practical level, I'm sure, and this is often the case, that the partner is looking for something. And because they feel that that something is lacking, it often, so to speak, manifests in other things. I don't want you doing this because of this. I don't want you doing this because of this. But really, maybe the reason they don't want you doing that is because they feel distant from you now. And they don't want to feel distant from you anymore. So maybe if there's a way that on a practical level, you can make extra work to eliminate those distances that the partner feels is coming from the keeping of Shabbat or the different mitzvot which you may be trying to do. And to make it as clear as you can to him how meaningful this is to you, and that you don't need, if he doesn't want to partake in it, to do it in the way that you're doing it, but that you really, for yourself, it's very important to you. Then that would be a good suggestion. But the main thing here is prayer. The main thing here is tefillah. Every situation can be changed through prayer. It is the power of the Jewish woman's prayer over history that has taken situations which look very bleak, very difficult, incapable of changing, that has caused Hashem to change his mind. And therefore, I would highly suggest that you do whatever you can to have shalom bayit, but at the same time, on your own personally, that you advocate to Hashem every single day with as much intensity and fervor as you can, to allow you to have a space to do what He wants, to keep what He wants. That you're like we learned last night, that the Jewish women said to Hashem in the times of the Gezerah, the decree of Paro, that all of the Jewish sons should be killed and thrown in a river. That the Jewish woman then decided to still give birth, but then left their children in the field. And the lashon, the language, says Chazal, of what they said to Hashem was, I did my part, now you do yours. I did what I could, and now you must do the rest. It's not on me anymore. Something like that. I know it's hard, I know it's difficult, but I promise you that in our generation, there's a lot more of this than you could possibly imagine. And you're not alone. So just to know that, and also to know that Hashem gave you these circumstances, that Hashem gave you your husband, that Hashem gave you your children, that Hashem had you understand and realize certain things only later on. This is all part of, for sure, your tikkun, the tikkun of your family, and therefore to do your very best to be besimcha, to do your very best to be joyful, to have peace at home. But while you have that time alone with Hashem, that you continue to advocate for yourself, that you should be able to do what He wants, and to know and not to feel bad if you can't, because you're doing what you can, and Hashem knows that, and it's on Hashem, so to speak. Hashem doesn't want you to choose between your husband and him. Hashem put my name in the water, like sota. Dissolve my name in water for the sake of the peace of the couple. Hashem, you choose Hashem when you choose your husband. But at the same time, Hashem wants us to keep Shabbat. So how do those things coexist? This is in the emunah of Hashem, that I believe that everything that Hashem is for the best. But it's not a choosing of your husband or Hashem. It's the choosing of your husband is the choosing of Hashem. But to take it into the quiet recesses of your own heart, that for 1 hour a day at least, that you're pouring out to Hashem, that He should let you keep Shabbat. And also to thank Hashem that for whatever reason He's causing you not to be able to. Any other questions before we head out? Okay, tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Bezrat Hashem, we will continue in Likutey Halachot, a brand new lesson. And then tomorrow night, Bezrat Hashem, we will continue in Likutey Moran, and we're going to start a brand new tour in Likutey Moran. Bezrat Hashem, it should be very, very special. So everybody have an amazing, amazing day, and I'll see you tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem.